So, in the world of food safety, how do you pinpoint that one exact moment, the one that can stop a disaster before it even starts? Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're diving into a really powerful but surprisingly simple tool that does exactly that. It's called the CCP Decision Tree, and it's right at the heart of the HACCP system.
Yeah, this quote, it really hits home, doesn't it? The stakes in the food industry are just incredibly high. There's almost zero room for error. And that's exactly why having solid systems in place isn't just, a nice to have, it's an absolute necessity.
And that system, the one designed to stop those mistakes from ever happening, that's HACCP. You've probably heard of it. It stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. And its whole job, its entire reason for being, is to find and control those risks before they can turn into a real problem. Okay, so let's get right into the terminology. What is a CCP, a critical control point? Well, think of your entire food production process as a chain. A CCP is a specific link in that chain. It could be receiving ingredients, cooking, chilling, whatever, where you have the power to step in and control a hazard. It's that make or break moment where you can actively make the food safe. But here's the thing, right? A food process can be super complex. So how on earth do you find those exact critical moments? You definitely don't want to leave it to guesswork. And you don't have to. You use a logical step-by-step tool called the CCP Decision Tree. And the best part about this tool, it's honestly its simplicity. It's just a series of 4 yes or no questions. That's it. You just apply them to every single hazard at every single step of your process. It completely takes the guesswork out of the equation and gives you clear answers you can actually stand by. All right, so let's get into it. Let's break down these 4 questions one by one and see how this whole thing actually works. Okay, first up is question 1. This one is the big fundamental starting point. Is there a control measure at this step? It's a really simple question. Can you actually do something right here, right now? I mean, like cooking, chilling, checking with the metal detector to control the hazard we're worried about. The logic here is super clear. If you answer yes, great, you just move on to question 2. But if the answer is no, you've got to pause. You have to ask yourself, is control essential for safety right here? If it is, then you have to change the process to add a control. If it's not essential, then okay, this step isn't a CCP and you can move on. All right, on to question 2. This question is all about the why. Is this step specifically designed to eliminate or reduce the hazard to a safe level? Think about something like pasteurization. Its whole purpose, its entire reason for being in the process is to kill harmful microbes. That's what we're talking about here. And this question is actually a really cool shortcut, because if you can answer yes to this one, boom, you're done. That step is a CCP. End of story. But if the answer is no, don't worry, it doesn't mean it's not a CCP. It just means we need to keep digging a little deeper. Which brings us to question 3. Now we're talking about real-world risk. Could contamination with this hazard actually happen here? Or if the hazard is already there, could it increase to a dangerous, unacceptable level at this specific point? This question is basically a filter. If you can honestly say no, then the risk is probably too low for this step to be considered critical, so it's not a CCP. But if the answer is yes, then okay, the threat is real, and we've got one last question to get through. And that brings us to the final check, question 4. This one makes you look down the road a bit. You have to ask, will a step later on in the process get rid of this hazard or at least reduce it to a safe level? Like that final cooking step before packaging. So here's the final decision point. If a later step is going to take care of the problem, then this current step isn't your CCP. The control is somewhere else. But, and this is the big one, if the answer is no, if there is nothing later on that will fix this, then congratulations, you've found it. This step is a critical control point, and you absolutely must control it here. Okay, so that's all the theory. But let's make this real. Let's walk through a super common example and see how the decision tree actually works in practice. Let's take a raw chicken burger. The big hazard we're all thinking about is, of course, salmonella. So let's run it through the tree. Question 1, is there a control measure? Yes, of course, cooking. So we move on. Question 2, is the cooking step specifically designed to eliminate salmonella? Absolutely. That's kind of the whole point of cooking chicken, right? To kill bacteria? And just like that, we have our answer. We don't even need to go to Q3 or Q4. The cooking step is a CCP. But finding the CCP isn't the finish line. It's actually the starting pistol. Now that we know cooking is our CCP, we have to establish a clear, measurable limit. And for chicken, that non-negotiable number is a minimum internal temperature of 74 degrees Celsius or 165 Fahrenheit. That is HACCP in action. Okay, before we finish up, I just want to leave you with a few quick reminders to make sure you're using this tool effectively.
These 4 points are really, really important. First, you have to be thorough. Go through every hazard at every step. Second, remember, not every step is going to be a CCP. In fact, if you have too many, your system can get really hard to manage, so that's okay. Third, and this is a big one, document everything. Write down why you made the decisions you did. And finally, review your CCPs. Things change, processes get updated, so you need to make sure your plan is still relevant.
When you get right down to it, it's all about this. The CCP Decision Tree takes what seems like a really complicated part of HACCP and just makes it a simple, logical process. 4 questions. That's it. And they give you clear answers. And those clear answers, they lead to safer food for everyone. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. When you look at your own process, where are your true critical control points? Because using this logic to find them, well, that's the most important first step you can take to making your food safer. Thanks for joining me.